Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Explode Your Expert Business Show. And today we are here with Janet Murray. How you doing, Janet?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
This is it feels like a part two of an interview that we have been doing for your show. So I'm really excited about this interview, Janet, because it's all about getting out there, getting media attention, getting publicity, and there is no one better than you here in the UK at least, but also on a global scale to cover this topic. So I'm really excited. Before we get started, Janet, can you tell us a bit more about what got you so passionate about working in this industry and a bit more about your background?
Yeah, so my background is journalism actually. So I spent 18 years writing and editing for national newspapers and magazines, mainly The Guardian actually, in the last sort of 5 or 6 years of my journalism career. And what happened was I noticed something early on. And what I noticed is that people were dreadful at pitching to the media. So as a journalist, I would get these absolutely dreadful press releases, these dreadful pitches in my inbox, and I would just think, why would anyone want to cover that story? And then I'd start to get a little bit cross because I've always been freelance, so I've always worked for myself and run my own business, even, a kind of small sole trader. And sometimes I'd see that some of these press releases came from people like me who were running their own business, and they were probably on a budget, on a shoestring budget, and they were paying PR people or they were paying PR companies to write this drivel for them. And I thought to myself, look, if these guys don't know how to write a press release or a pitch that journalists are actually interested in, then I'm going to show them how to do it. So I got together with another journalist and we started running these pitching workshops in London, and we got quite big. Brands used to come. We had Santander, John Lewis, big brands like that, but also kind of smaller businesses and brands, charities, and we started running these pitching workshops. And then we thought, oh, actually, maybe if what these people really want to do is they want to meet journalists, maybe we could start putting on bigger events. So we started running these kind of meet the media events where we'd get all these journalists to come along and talk. And all of this was just a side hustle. So we were just doing this alongside our day jobs as journalists. And then I realized that I was starting to get these kind of nice consultancy gigs where people would book me to speak or to go in and do consultancy or pitching or writing, whatever. I thought, how can I do more of this? So I started writing a blog. I just thought to myself, oh, how can I reach more people about this training and these events? And I tell you what I'll do, I'll start a blog and I can write on this blog. I can answer people's questions that they ask me all the time. How do you write a press release? How do you write a pitch? How do you get in touch with journalists? All these things that I know because I work in the industry. And then people will find me. And what I didn't realize I was doing at the time, I was doing content marketing, because when I started blogging, I then had to learn, well, how do I actually get people to read my blog? How do I get people over to my website? How do I promote it on social media? So I just kind of got stuck into learning all of this stuff. And meanwhile, I was working as a freelance journalist, still mainly for The Guardian, but lots of other national titles. And after a while, I started to think, actually, this is more fun than journalism. I like this more, and I've been doing, I've been writing for a while and editing for a while, and I just thought I'd like to do more of this. And actually, what I'd really like to do is to help people who are running their own businesses. I think it would be really fun. So gradually, I just kind of pivoted my business so that I was working more with small business owners and entrepreneurs rather than the bigger brands. And that's pretty much brought me up to today. That's kind of like a whistle-stop tour. So how do I help people now? Actually, my focus is a lot broader now. So I started out just helping people with press coverage. But actually, and for reasons we might be able to go into in this interview, actually, I think that although press coverage is still really relevant, I think actually there's a lot of other content you need to be putting out there in order to promote your business effectively. So So basically, these days, I now have a membership community. So that's my main sort of source of income, where I help small business owners and entrepreneurs to promote themselves more effectively. And I help them not just with getting press coverage, but also with content marketing, with email marketing, with social media marketing. So I just help them promote themselves in the broadest sense. I've also got a book, which is called Your Press Release is Breaking My Heart. And that's
The best book title ever. I was looking at your website and your book and started
Yeah.
giggling when I saw the title, because
Yeah.
probably one of these press releases you received probably was
Yeah.
also written by me, because I remember the first press release I was sending out, apart from the grammatical errors that you could find. Being Italian and my writing is not being my strongest suit. And on the other hand, on top of that, I didn't have a clue about what to write. So remember, I used to write this like long emails that would take me 3 hours just to write for nothing. So probably you maybe be reading one of my emails. But so now you're running this incredible community. I know that you have one of your next event coming soon as well. When is the date?
So
For
it's called Media Influence Live, and it's on July the 5th and 6th in London. And this is an annual event that I run where I get together sort of key influencers from the traditional media, so from the likes of The Guardian, the BBC, ITV, we've got Grazia magazine, but also media influencers in the broader sense. So we've also got speakers, high-profile podcasters, YouTubers, and people who are kind of very active on social media as well, just to really reflect, the change in terms of media influence.
And I think that's so if you are in London, make sure you get down to that conference. We'll put a link in the show notes. Now I think is a nice bridge, because you mentioned two different realities here. There is the reality of the traditional media, and there is the reality of the social media. And you mentioned before, you started saying that now you need to have both. Can you talk a bit more about that, so then we can have a clearer picture about media in general?
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the reasons I now help people in a broader sense, I used to just help people with getting press coverage. But what would happen is people would come to me and they'd say, I want you to help me get into Marie Claire magazine, or I want you to help me to get onto the BBC. And I'd be like, I can help with that, but actually, how else are you promoting yourself? Because you could get yourself a really nice piece of coverage in Marie Claire magazine, but if you're not creating content, for example, on a blog or a vlog or a podcast, if you're not promoting yourself on social media, if you're not doing email marketing, that's the key one for me, then the reach, the impact of that piece of press coverage is going to be very minimal. And I think a lot of people think press coverage is great for credibility. It's great for showing people. It's almost like a stamp of approval. So it's like if the BBC think that what you've got to say
As
is
seen
putting
on
your
BBC,
telly. Yeah.
Forbes, CNN, it looks great.
Yeah, it's great. It's great for your credibility. But actually, when it comes to making sales, I do have some clients, and I have got some really good examples of clients who have actually shifted units of whatever it is that they make or sell due to media coverage. But actually, what really helps you make sales, for me, in my experience, and this is with hundreds of clients, is email marketing. And that's fueled by social media marketing. It's fueled by blogging. And it can also be fueled by press. But for me, I think it's a dangerous strategy. If you're just going out thinking, I'm just going to go out and get this press coverage, I'm going to be media famous, it's going to be amazing. You hear the odd person that happens to, but for most of us, press coverage should be just one of a number of things that we should be doing to promote ourselves. So I think that's because the media has changed so much. The media used to just be, magazines, newspapers, radio, TV, but because that now we can make our own media. We don't have to wait to be picked. We can get really successful on YouTube or on a podcast. Or one of my speakers actually at Media Influence Live is Emma Gannon, who has the Control Alt Delete podcast, which is really, really successful. And what I love about her is she hasn't sat around waiting to be picked. She's gone out and created her own media. She created a really successful podcast, and that has enabled her to get some really fantastic traditional media opportunities. So she's been featured in lots of magazines, radio and TV. But actually, I think in her case, it was the podcast that fueled that traditional media. And I think I'm really passionate about this, because I think that a lot of people they're missing this, and they're seeing the kind of glossy magazines and the TV and the radio, but actually missing the other parts of it. They're like, oh, well, that doesn't matter, that's not important. Actually, that stuff's really important, and that will actually not only help you fuel the traditional media stuff, but actually make it bigger for you. Because when I get a piece in The Guardian or I'm with the BBC, I can get that out to so many more people because I have my own audience, because I make my own media. And I'm really passionate about getting that message across to people, because I think it can make a huge difference to your business and to your credibility and your authority if you're not just focusing on traditional press.
But what is the starting point? Is the kind of a chicken and egg situation, or should you start right now? Let's say someone is starting out, right? Where would you recommend to go straight for the traditional media to get that numbers in and allow them to grow their social media, or to start growing their social media first so they can leverage easier the other way? What is that works better in your opinion?
In my experience, need to get your own content going first. So, like I say, when I have an article in the Guardian, or I'm creating an article in the Guardian, I can get that in front of my email list of 15,000 people if I want to. I can get it in front of my Twitter following, which is 25,000. I can get it in front of my Facebook group, which has got 12,500 people in it. So if you just look at those numbers alone, and I've got quite a modest audience compared to some people out there, but I can get that content further because I've already built an audience. If I had no audience whatsoever, I might be lucky. I might have one article or one TV appearance that goes really mad. But for most of us, it's like anything. It's like, I think people often think, oh, if I get in a magazine, that will explode my business. Well, you might get a few more inquiries, you might get a few more hits to your website, but actually, like anything in your business, you have to keep doing it. So what I would suggest is a couple of things that you can do, which are absolutely free and don't take up much of your time. And I would suggest, if you're interested in getting traditional media coverage and you want to be able to put that, I always call it the bling on your website. If you want to be able to have that bling that's kind of like as seen in, there's a few things that you can do which don't take up much time. And I've got some lovely blog posts and things I can share with you to help with that. So the first thing is, in the UK, we have a hashtag called Journo Request. And you get journalists from quite high-profile publications over on Twitter, and they will just be asking for help with articles that they're working on. And the thing about this, I've got a blog post actually, which I'd love to share with you to put in the show notes, is that
Please.
So I've got this 10-day PR challenge, and I mentioned Journo requested it, and then I often get emails from people, and they say, well, I checked it out, and there was like nothing on there for me. I was like, well, you checked it once, like you have to kind of go back more than once. It's like kind of, thinking that you're going to go on Twitter and post one tweet or one Facebook post. It has to kind of be part of your daily routine, and, you kind of do that for 10, 15 minutes a day. But loads of my clients have had really great coverage just from checking in daily to Journo requests. The other thing as well is that I think you have to think a little bit creatively about it. So you're a speaker, Simone, so you might just, this is kind of the attitude lots of people have. So they go on Journo requests and they're like, okay, right, there's nothing about speaking. Well, you need to think a bit more creatively, and you need to think, okay, what else could I help with? So you might see something about Italian cuisine, or you might see something about working in the restaurant trade, or you might see something about, something else that you know about. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people will say, well, how could that help my business? Like, that's not what I'm doing at the moment. That's not, but actually that's a great way for you to build a bridge with a journalist who you then in the future might be able to go to with a story with it. Much more kind of on view, and also it might be it's still a great way of getting in front of people, and it's still, you can still put that bling on your website and still say I've been featured in the Guardian or BBC or whatever. So I would look out for opportunities and see it as a long-term game, and I talk about this in this blog post that I can share with you on how to actually get the most out of it. The second thing is there's media inquiry services, and these are services that you can sign up to. I can give you a few examples, which literally put journalists who are looking for help with stories in touch with people who want to be featured in the media. And if you sign up to them, it's as simple as you get emails in your inbox every single day from journalists who are saying, I need somebody to quote on this or that or whatever. Again, you have to think more laterally and creatively. I've commented on all sorts of things. Like I've commented on, I don't know. I've had really good press coverage, for example, the fact that I work in this shed at the bottom of my garden, and journalists have been writing articles about these fancy she sheds or chic sheds. Mm-hmm. They're much more interested in that than writing about my business and how brilliant. They're not interested.
But at the same time, it gives you exposure to you and your brand, and to a complete new audience that otherwise would have not heard from you. So what kind of? So we said the hashtag Journo request on Twitter. Yeah. And then we said, what are these kind of tools that you were mentioning?
So these are called, sorry, do you want me to give you some examples? They're called media inquiry services. So in the UK, we have Response Source. That's and most of them have a free trial. You can sign up and try it out for a few weeks or a week. There's also one called Gorkana. There's also, I'm trying to think of some other ones where you can get a free trial. There's also ones actually if you've got products. So there's Press Loft. And there's one called Ace Media as well. And actually, if you have products, you can upload pictures of your products, and journalists will be searching. So if they're doing like a roundup of red shoes, and you make red shoes, or you do red sofas or something, that can be a great way. You've already got your photos there, and they find you. So that's really good as well. Help a Reporter Out is the big one internationally and in the US, so that's worth having a look at. And we also have, there's one that's kind of like escaping my memory at the moment.
Is that Source Bottle?
Yes, source
Okay.
bottle. Yeah, and that's, I think it started in Australia, but it also
Yeah.
has US and UK requests. And as with all this stuff, you just have to be patient and you just have to think a little bit creatively. I answer anything. If I think I've got an experience of it or an opinion on it, I just think brilliant. That's a great way that I can connect with journalists. And the other really simple thing to do is if you want to connect with journalists, they're all on Twitter. That's where they hang out on social media. Just make Twitter lists. So if you've decided, Simone, that you want to be in, I don't know, restaurant magazines or something, because that's really relevant to you, you do some searches on Twitter, you just make a Twitter list of all of the key journalists, just like you would do if you were looking for speaking gigs. You
Yeah.
start off by maybe just retweeting their stuff first of all, letting them know that you're out there, then maybe you might move on to responding to them, and then you could just go in for a pitch. If you've got an idea, there's no reason why you can't just send them a tweet. And also following things like BBC Radio 4, BBC Radio 5 Live, or wherever you are in the world, whatever your radio stations are. BBC Radio 5 in the UK, they're always like putting stuff out for they're always putting out requests for people they want to talk to for stories. So just following the right people and being connected to the right people, it's like anything you want to do in your business. It doesn't cost you any money. It just costs you a little bit of time and a little bit of strategy, and shouldn't be any more than about 10-15 minutes a day. So that would be where I would get people to start before you even think about writing press releases or pitches. Press releases mostly a waste of time. Most journalists are quite happy with an email that's got all the right information. We can go into that more if you want to, but does that give you a kind of idea of a starting point?
Absolutely. And I think it was 2 years ago. I was listening to a podcast, and I don't remember which show, but you were featured there. And you mentioned Harrow, Help a Reporter Out, and Source Bottle. And you mentioned the hashtag journal request. So as I do, I listen to something, I say, oh, this is cool, let me test it out. I think within the past 2 years, just listening from this interview that you had, I think I had about 45 articles published between Helper Reporters Out and Source Bottle. Now, I made it my life mission every day to check it out. I was spending about 2 hours a day focusing on that. But it helped me massively to get my blog out there. And sometimes, I was pitching for anything. Small blogs, big blogs, big magazine, small magazine. I didn't care. But one of my articles through Source Bottle got actually on the front cover of a magazine in Australia. And so I think this is a brilliant metaphor or a brilliant story to say, if these platforms work, you gotta put a bit of work in. And I haven't explored Twitter much, so I'm still getting used to it. But that's my next step for this part. So first of all, is an opportunity to thank you
Yeah.
in person, because
I
without
I need you to get you to send me that bit that you just said.
yeah,
Because that's
absolutely.
a great
I'll record a
testimonial,
video.
isn't it?
I'll record a video for you, no problem. It was, but you don't know what you don't know. So I didn't know those tools were out there. So do you have, by any chance, like a blog post where you list, because I can put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
If you have a blog post where you list all the resources that you mentioned so far, I'll put that in
Yeah.
the show notes as well.
Yeah, I've got one which is actually called how to use tools like journo requests to get press coverage, and I list all the examples that you might try. People are always asking me, actually, are there any in other countries? And I don't know. I want people to tell me, because like if you're listening and you're in a country and you discover one, like let me know, because I'm pretty sure it's not just in the UK. I'm sure that there are other journalists who would, it's not a difficult thing to think of. Shall I create a hashtag on Twitter?
If I need
And
something.
yeah, but I think what you said was really, really important. It's like I get an email probably every day. I've got this 10-day PR challenge that I do, and this where I take people and give them a little task to do every day. And one of them is looking at journal requests, the other one's looking at these inquiry services. And I think I get an email every single day from somebody who says, "Well, I've checked on there. There's nothing on there for me." I'm like, "Come on, you've got to stick at it. You've got to get on there, and you've got to like try more than once." And I think this is the thing with anything in your business. I know you're a really determined, a really tenacious person. And I think you do have to be quite determined, quite tenacious, and quite open-minded, and say, okay, well, at the moment, I always say to people, recommend friends. So you see a request that isn't for you, but you think, oh, actually, that would really suit my friend. I think they could help with that. That journalist will remember you and say, well, Simone, he helped me out with that story. Then you can go to them and say, hey, do you remember I helped you out? how about this? It's a
Absolutely.
great way to
It's
open
really
doors.
it's really fascinating because recently I started being on the receiving end. I never saw myself as a journalist, even though I create content. I'm a content machine, content creation machine. And recently I started contributing for Forbes, and I'm receiving pitches from LinkedIn, my email almost every week for people willing to pay 500 to 1,000 to $2,000 to have their company featured in one of my articles. Now, sometimes I just pen there. I generally don't do it because it's not what I want to do, and also is against the terms and conditions in Forbes for the part of what I'm doing. So I want to keep my place there, and not to do something that now this guy gets on my radar just for $1,000. And I look at their website, and there is nothing other than an About Me page. I'm like, so how do you expect me as a contributor to write something nice about you if you have nothing nice to show?
Mm. This is another point about why I think you need to start with content first, because as a journalist, I don't do it very often, but every so often I still do some editing shifts on The Guardian, almost as like a favour. And I did a few weeks ago, and I'm actually doing a couple of weeks in June. And it's quite good because it keeps my hand in, it keeps me fresh, and it keeps me kind of on the ball with, what life's like as a commissioning editor. But people will get in touch with me and they offer to write things. And sometimes I am in the position where I could commission somebody to write an opinion article. So the first thing I do, of course, is I go and look at them on Twitter. Or even if I'm just looking for somebody to quote in an article, or just looking for ideas, the first thing I'll do is I go on Twitter, I go on LinkedIn, I go on the different social networks and people's blogs. Are they actually creating content about this topic? Are they talking about the topic that they say they're an expert in? If I go and I see there's nothing, they're not blogging about it, it's the same for people pitching podcast interviews as well. Like, people find this really hard when I say no to them, but it's like when I do a podcast interview with somebody, I want to be able to, I've got my own podcast, by the way, which is called the Soulful PR Podcast.
Awesome podcast, guys. Make sure you subscribe.
Someone was on it
it's
recently.
Amazing.
But, people will pitch me and they'll get offended if I say no. And I was like, the thing is that if you want to come on my show and you want to talk about, I don't know, Instagram stories or something like that, what I want to be able to do is to present you as the go-to person, so that after the interview's finished, the listeners can go and find your stuff. They can get more blog posts if they want it. They can get a freebie. They can get a book. They can get events, whatever it is. But basically, I'm not sending people to a dead end. And I think that's really important as well, is that you're showing through your content on your blog and through your social media that you are the expert that you say you are. That's another reason, because journalists, the first thing they'll do is they'll look you up online to see if are you the expert that you say you are. So I think that's another really good reason to start with content.
So now I have a question, because I know that in part of the things that I wanted to discuss was how do we create content that becomes shareable? Because it's not just about creating content. That's what I've realized recently as well. I was falling into the trap before of just creating. But some pieces were getting good traction, other pieces nothing. So what in your experience did you found that is like a formula or a strategy to create content that is the right type of content that is going to be shared?
Well, my philosophy on this is very, very simple. Is if you want to create engaging content, it's not about you, basically. It's about your audience, and it's about what they want, what they need. Now, obviously, depending on who your audience is and what they're interested in. In my case, my audience just want me to solve their problems. They just want me to give them like really, really practical content that's going to help them get better on Instagram or find more clients or create a lead magnet for their email marketing. So they want really practical hands-on stuff.
The beauty of running a show, like I think the postman is gonna wait a bit now. Yeah, let him ring. Let's keep talking.
They always come whenever you start.
They always come now. Apparently, he's very insistent.
They
Okay.
always do, yeah. And I think the delivery people are getting more insistent since I've been working at home. I think they really bang the door down as well. But that's for another time.
That's for another thing. Okay, let's wait. Let's wait.
Um,
They're gonna
Yeah, so
postman
for
wait
me,
outside.
great content is it's not about you. That is the key thing. It's about you. It's about solving their problems. Now, depending on what you do and what your audience is, solving their problems could just be entertaining them or making them laugh or cheering them up or whatever it is that you do. But it's I always try and think when I'm creating content, how can I make this about my audience, but get it on the topic that I want to talk about. So I kind of I turn things around. So, for example, I was promoting a podcast recently. I interviewed a lady who became an Instagram star at the age of 69, which is quite an interesting podcast episode. But I knew that if I just posted a link to that podcast episode and said on LinkedIn, I think it was, here's my latest podcast, I might get 2 likes. I might get a weedy little share from somebody. So what I did instead is I asked a question. I said, when are you thinking of retiring? And I basically said, I don't think I ever want to retire because I love working and I just can't imagine not working. And I got a conversation going on about retiring. And I said, by the way, my latest podcast episode is an interview with a lady who became an Instagram star at 69. Got a lot more engagement with my content by turning it around and making it about my audience. And I'm just about to do a Facebook page growth challenge with my community.
Hmm.
And there's 3 types of content. I'm going to try and remember them now that I think that you should create regularly. But the first one is kind of like where you're sort of solving somebody's problems. So it's like, this is what I need right now. So that's number 1. So I need this practical advice right now. I need to know about this right now. The other type of content is like, I know how that feels. So I recently, you might have seen this, I've been working up to running the London Marathon for like
I've seen. I was so
a month.
gutted.
And the weather was unusually hot and I got heat exhaustion and I had to pull out. But people have been following my journey of this marathon, and it hasn't finished yet, by the way. There will be another instalment. But for such a long time
Yeah.
in me posting about what happened actually in my marathon, my personal got more engagement with my business audience than anything I've posted about business in the last 6 months or so. So if you can create content that connects with your audience, like the kind of thing that you do post on your personal Facebook wall. I've just really messed up. I've been training for this marathon for all this time, and I got heat exhaustion, and I've had to pull out. People love that kind of content. So I call that kind of I know how that feels content. So it's where people can empathise, and the other type of content, I call it I know about that kind of content. So that's basically when you ask people for their opinions. So if I'm doing a launch, I'll often, instead of just saying, hey, I've got a new course or a new program or a new event, I'll say, hey, I'm looking at the logo today for my new course or program. Which do you like? Do you like A or B? Or I'll ask just people what they think about things. I do the silliest polls on Twitter, like, do you drink tea or coffee? Or do you put your milk in first or whatever when you're making tea? But that's what people like, doing business with people, and they like to understand the person behind the brand. And I was looking at the reach actually of that of my post about how I'd had to pull out of the marathon. It had like quadruple the engagement on my Facebook business page than
On the
anything.
business page,
My business page,
not even the personal one. We are talking about the business one.
business page, 4 times the reach of anything that I posted.
No paid advertisement.
No, and I think that is the thing. So that's
Wow.
so I think it's a connection, personal. It's not what people think. People think shareable content is about viral content or whatever, but actually often it's just about connecting with your audience, and we've all got different audiences. So yeah, to summarise, the 3 types is I need that right now. This is what I need right now. Practical, hands-on stuff. Second type is I know about that. I can give you my opinion. People love giving their opinions on that sort of thing. And I've got a good example of that actually. When I went out to social media marketing world recently, and I got into my hotel room and everything was for sale in the room. It was one of these hotels where they tried to upsell you everything. So the cushion was for sale, like the slippers was for sale, there were snacks for sale.
In the room.
In the room, yeah.
No way.
I'd already sent my daughter a picture of this dog, this cute little fluffy dog I'd found in my hotel room, and then I realised it had $25 around its neck. So
Too late.
My attitude to content was, right, this is brilliant. I know about that kind of content. So I snapped it, I used a Snapseed app to put the prices on
Yep.
it. So I took a picture of everything in the room, put $25 on everything to show that everything, and then I just basically said, "What do you think about this?" I kind of half admire it because I think it's really clever marketing, but at the same time, I kind of hate it because now I've got to buy this dog. And that got loads of engagement because people love to give their opinions. They love to tell you what they think about things. So that's the second type. I know about that. And the third type is I know how it feels. And I think you can't go wrong. If you're using those three types of content regularly, you can't go wrong. You're going to get great engagement.
And you use them on your blogs, you use them on social media, you use them if you're writing a LinkedIn article. You're using
Email
them,
marketing, yeah.
email marketing, if you're doing a podcast, for example, is all part of the relationship. Now, when you talked about the marathon, I remember a post that I put out, was that I think at the beginning of the year, because I've been working really hard in the past 2 years to go back into the professional basketball teams here in the UK. So, because I used to play semi-pro when I was 19, then I stopped for about 10 years. So it was literally the past 2 years just getting back to play at that level. And I found a team in my local area, and they were playing in the fourth division at the National League. And my basketball coach used to play in the NBA. Was the first ever Brit to play in the NBA. So was really excited to go there. I told to the coach, and they said, "Okay, you come in, you're in for the next game." I was pumped, I was excited, I was putting everywhere on social media. Finally, I'm in. Yes, the day of the game comes. Unfortunately, the game was too tight, so the coach couldn't take chances to put me in, and he had to put the better players. So I didn't got to play the very first game, and I made this announcement public. I'm gonna play my first game. And inside, my heart was broken. And I
I'm not
remember,
laughing at that. I'm just laughing. It's a great story. You
yeah,
know
no,
that.
no, my heart was broken. So I put this post on social media and I said, "Oh, guys, unfortunately, that happened." And I think I got about like 110 comments or something like that. I was like, "Jeez, man." First of all, I felt blessed because actually people cared and about me, and it shows that follow my journey, but then also gives a great lesson that people are following you as an individual.
Mm. Yeah,
People
yeah. I'm
are
just going
more
to show you
interested in,
something.
yeah, yeah, please.
I just want to show you something that kind of fits into what we're talking about. So this is just picking up on the London Marathon thing. This is from one of my clients. So she sent me a well done for dropping out card, putting your health first. She sent me this, and she sent me this little tin, which is a self-care tin, and this just arrived before.
No
And I think this is
way.
what you're saying. Like when you announced that everybody was excited for you because you're going to do it, and then and like my dad said to me the other day, he said everybody loves a loser, which is like.
Thank you, Dad. Thanks, Dad. Appreciate
But
that.
I know what he means. What he was saying is that because I was saying, oh my God, since I've shared this, like I've had to drop out. Everybody's engaged with me so much, but people, they can feel it. They can feel your disappointment, and they feel bad for you, and they want to help you feel better, and that's better than any business post you could ever
Yeah,
make. In terms of
absolutely.
connecting with your audience.
Absolutely. And the other thing is that it needs to be honest and genuine. Don't fabricate it because you find that people actually fabricate this kind of post because they know it gets so much engagement.
Yeah,
But people can see through it.
yeah.
So don't fabricate it because you might get away once, twice, but then you've lost your entire reputation with your audience. So
Mm.
don't do that. Be honest. And like in anything, honesty always pays off.
I want to know though. I want to now know what happened with the basketball though. So did
Ah!
we can't go on without. I need to know the next bit.
I actually got in the team. I played the next game, and every game I was in, I played about 6 games, and every game I scored 2 points. So I always made a bucket. Every single game I had my 2 points, and I wasn't playing much. I generally played over a 12 minutes game. Was Oh no, not 12 minutes game. Sorry, a 40 minutes game. I was going to play 2 minutes, 3 minutes if it was like who was a good day. So I always managed to score, and I was happy. The coach was happy. So it came out, and I'm going to the same team then next year, which I'm
Right.
really excited. We missed the playoff, unfortunately. We arrived fifth instead of fourth, so that's
Mm.
we could have gone to third division anyway. But last round of questions, which is starting the session, which is lifting the veil. Now, in this part, I want to ask you, what is one thing that you're doing in your business right now that is working incredibly well that other people should know about?
Okay, so something that we're doing, which is working really well for all of our launches, for my membership, but also my live events, my courses, is I call them open days. So I used to do a lot of webinars where I would, if I had a launch coming up, I was launching an event or my membership or course, and we'd do a webinar and I would sell. And I kind of did okay. They always made sales and, did okay.
Hmm.
But then I had this idea with my membership, I just thought, why is it that people don't join membership communities? I think the main reason is they don't really understand sometimes what a membership community is. They can't see the resources, they can't meet the other members because it's online and it's virtual. I thought, how could I help with that? How could I help them to make a decision and help them feel more informed? So I came up with this idea. I thought, what do you do when you're, finding a school for your child? You go to an open day, don't you? And you
Yeah,
go around
yeah,
and you
yeah,
and you
yeah.
you get shown around by the schools who do this right. They get the pupils to show you around. They get their most polite, best pupils to show you around, and you can ask them the questions, and they leave you on your own with them. So I started running open days for my memberships. Instead of having a webinar, I would just say, so, come along, we'll show you in the back of the website, we'll show you what the materials look like. And also I'll bring on some of my current members just to tell you about it and what kind of wins they've had, whatever, so you can meet them genuinely. So I've done this for my membership quite consistently and it converts so well because it's just like, it just clicks for
I
people.
can see that. I never heard about this. This is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, and I call it the open day, but I do an open day for everything now. So for my live event that I've got coming up, we've just finished the early bird tickets, so now we're kind of going on to the kind of next level of tickets, or super early bird. And so we do it, with our email marketing. We do look not book sequences. So we'll say, we'll go back to the people who haven't bought and say, look, I hope you don't mind me asking, but could you tell me why you didn't buy, so we can get more of an understanding. And this time we said to them, would you be interested in having a kind of open day type thing? Like, would you be interested in just coming onto a call with me so you can ask me any questions about the event? And I mean, unfortunately, I can't bring my speakers on. I wish I could. Maybe I might be able to twist somebody's arm to come and do it. But I can certainly bring past delegates along to talk about their experience and whatever. So we're going to do that for the event. And we've had quite a good take up, people saying that they want to do that. So it's kind of like an open day. I just think it's that behind the scenes. I think sometimes
Yeah.
people don't buy just because they can't see it and they can't feel it, and I think that's probably the closest thing that you can do. So that's working really well, and it's something that we're kind of replicating for different.
I like it. I really like it. I see this becoming a thing.
Yeah.
I really like the idea. And how long do you run these open days? It's like all day on the call and people drop in, or is that a specific 1 hour, 2 hour window where people can come in? Or how does it work?
We tend to do a 1 or 2 hour window. We record it and we'll send out the recording. And what was interesting actually over Christmas, obviously it was Christmas and my family probably would have not been very keen on me doing an open day like in between Christmas and New Year. But that's the best time for people to join my membership, because between Christmas and New Year they get Christmas out of the way, they have those few days and they're like, oh, actually I don't want to mess up again next year. I don't want to get
Yeah.
another year where I feel like I haven't built an audience and all this sort of stuff. So it's a really great time for me to get new members in, because people are sort of thinking that way, but I don't really kind of want to do a live. So we just sent out a recording of our open day and just had it as part of a sequence, and that converted really, really well. And the other thing we're doing as well is challenges. So the last launch I did, we had a group challenge on email marketing. And I got some interesting feedback actually from people who did join a membership. And they said that was what sold it to them, because I was in the group actually helping people with they were creating a lead magnet. It was they were creating the very first lead magnet for their email marketing. And I was giving them personal feedback. And they were saying, it's again, this whole thing, I could see the benefit because I could see how you were working with people. I could see how you were working with me. I could see the feedback, and it was like the proof, the social proof. So I'm really into this kind of behind the scenes, get people as close as you can, because it is hard, isn't it? When you're trying to buy a course or program or event, you don't really
Particularly if you're
know.
paying a recurring subscription. I mean, there are people that have already bought subscriptions before, they've been burnt because then the content wasn't great and it was just
Yeah,
like kind of left on their own with a bunch of 3 hours long pre-recorded videos,
yeah,
which
yeah,
so
yeah.
I think it's brilliant. I absolutely love it. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for
That's
sharing. I'm
okay.
sure
Yeah.
that guys. So if you're launching your membership, if you're that's an idea to test. That's an
Mm,
idea to
yeah.
test. If you're launching an event, that's an idea to test because that's how we are in this industry. We are testing. We'll see if it works. It might work for Janet. Might not work for you. It might work for Janet, and it might work for you as well. Who knows? Gonna test it out, and then see. Now, Janet, it's time to wrap up. I absolutely love this interview. What is, I know that you have also giveaways. There are ways for people to get in touch with you. So, how can people get the most of all your content?
Okay, so the best place to find me is on my website, which is janetmurray.co.uk. I also have a very active Facebook group, which has about 12,500 members in it. And I'm in there every day answering members' questions and helping them out. And we have daily like conversations going on. And I broadcast live in there quite often. That's quite a good place to start because you can kind of get a sense of the community and me and my resources. But also I've got a blog and got the podcast, the Soulful PR podcast, where the name may well be changing soon. So just look out for Janet Murray's podcast. And I've also got, and I can share this in the show notes, a lot of people start on my 10-day PR challenge. And this is what I mentioned before. And I can certainly share a link for you, especially for this show, for that challenge. And I take people through step by step how they can start to get traditional media coverage, but also things like pitch themselves to guest as a interviewee and podcasts and things like that. So how they can kind of build their media influence. And there's a little task to do every day. And it sounds like I'm blowing my own trumpet, but when I think about the things that I do, that I get the best feedback for, this particular challenge is the one that people say, wow, that's really great. I got really great results. I get loads of testimonials from people who say, wow, actually,
It
this works
works.
for me. Like
It
you, yeah,
works.
it
It's not
works.
just like one of these free challenges and you join and
Yeah,
you get nothing. So
yeah,
it's actually something that you get implementable action steps
yeah,
and then you actually have more chances to get on media.
yeah.
So Janet, thank you very much. I really appreciate this interview. Loved every single minute, and it was full of value bombs. Completely
Good.
loved it. Guys, make sure that, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening, you're watching. There is going to be the links in the show notes of the resources that we talked about on the show. You can connect with Janet there. I'm going to put the links of her Facebook group, of her website, so you can be in touch with her because if you want to get on media, I've been following Janet for a few years now, and there is no one better than her to follow if you want to get media coverage, which is crucial. Like, you can't really grow your business without getting your audience to see you. So make sure you follow her. Janet, thank you very much. Really appreciate the interview.
Thanks for having me.
And also, if you haven't subscribed to the podcast, then make sure that you subscribe right now. What are you waiting for? You cannot miss another episode. And let me know. Leave us a review. Let me know what did you love the most about this show. And up until next time, remember that together we grow exponentially. Bye for now.